And I have to tell you directly and personally that I regret voting for you for Secretary of State. I yield back.
May I respond?
You may sit.
Well, first of all, your regret for voting for me confirms I'm doing a good job.
You're about to watch Marco Rubio obliterate this disrespectful Democrat.
Like the McCarthy-era witch hunts of the 1950s, your campaign of fear and repression is eating away at foundational values of our democracy. Back then, it took one voice, Attorney Joseph Welch, to cut through the hysteria with the simple question that marked the beginning of the end of that shameful era. He asked Senator McCarthy, have you no sense of decency? And I would ask you the same, Secretary Rubio. But you have shown through your words and your actions what the answer is. And I have to tell you directly and personally that I regret voting for you for Secretary of State. I yield back.
May I respond?
You may sit.
Well, first of all, your regret for voting for me confirms I'm doing a good job, based on what I know.
Well, that's just a flippant statement, Mr. Secretary.
Can I respond, Mr. Chairman?
You may.
I didn't ask
Senator,
questions.
please let the Secretary have
I'd be
the floor.
happy to, but then I can respond to his.
Your time's up, Senator, and willfully used, I might add.
Well,
your remarks do not represent the view of this committee.
Well, Mr.
Secretary, please.
Well, I'd like to. I can't respond to everything he said because much of these are untrue, but I'll go through a few. First of all, I'm actually very proud of the work we've done with USAID. For example, I don't regret cutting $10 million for male circumcisions in Mozambique. I don't know how that makes us stronger and more prosperous as a nation. I don't regret psychosocial support services.
I raised Sudan, Mr. Secretary.
Can I respond,
Senator, I'd ask you to suspend. You had 7 straight minutes of
I chose to use my time that way, Mr. Chairman. That's my right to
Please
use
suspend
my time that way.
Secretary Rubio.
Well, I can go on. I mean, there's other things here. We spent $227,000 for Big Cat's YouTube channel from USAID. We spent $14 million for social cohesion in Mali, whatever the hell that means. So I can go on and on. I got the list here, and there's more. I didn't even bring the whole list. In the case of El Salvador, absolutely. Absolutely. We deported gang members, including the one you had a margarita with. And that guy is a human trafficker, and that guy is a gangbanger, and the evidence is going to be clear. In the days to come, you're going to see who you went to defend.
I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman.
Secretary Rubio has the floor.
Mr. Chairman, he can't make unsubstantiated comments like that.
Secretary Rubio has the floor. You've had
Secretary
your time.
Rubio should take that testimony to the federal court of the United States because he hasn't done it under oath.
Here's another point, okay? There is a division in our government between the federal branch and the judicial branch. No judge in the judicial branch cannot tell me or the president how to conduct foreign policy. No judge can tell me how I have to outreach to a foreign partner or what I need to say to them. And if I do reach to that foreign partner and talk to them, I am under no obligation to share that with the judiciary branch. Just like a judge cannot order me to negotiate with a foreign minister of Russia, they cannot order me to negotiate with a foreign minister or the president of El Salvador. And if I did negotiate with them, which we have responded to them, and we've told them, we've had communications with the president of El Salvador. I am under no obligation, under our division of powers in this country, and to share with the judicial branch how I conduct the diplomacy of the United States. It would actually be counterproductive. If I started sharing with courts, or frankly, with the media, my conversations with foreign leaders and all of their details, no foreign leader would talk to me again, and we would break trust with them. So I have complied with every court order. What I won't comply with is an order to disclose what I'm saying and what we're talking about with a foreign leader, because then they won't talk to me. Diplomacy doesn't work that way. About the student visas, let me say this. I don't deport anybody, and I don't snatch anybody. The State Department does not have officers in the street snatching everybody. What I do is revoke visas, and it's very simple. A visa is not a right. It is a privilege. People apply for student visas to come into the United States and study. And if you tell me that you're coming to the United States to lead campus crusades, to take over libraries and try to burn down buildings and acts of violence, we're not going to give you a visa.
Is that what Ms. Ozturk did?
We're not going to give you a visa.
Is that what she did? Come on, Mr. Secretary.
And every single one of these cases, the factors are different.
Senator,
the bottom line is, if you're coming here to stir up trouble on our campuses, we will deny you a visa. And if you have a visa,
First Amendment apply to
we'll revoke
living in the United States?
And we're going to do more. There are more coming. We're going to continue to revoke the visas of people who are here as guests and are disrupting our higher education facilities. People are paying money. These kids pay money to go to school, and they have to walk through a bunch of lunatics who are here on student visas.
Disrupting the foreign policy of the United States.
I want to do more. I hope we can find more of these people.
That's pathetic, Mr.
In fact,
Secretary.
the other day, some guys led a riot. I forgot what university it was, and I asked, please, can you find the arrest records of all the people that were arrested at that riot at that campus? Because if any of them have a visa, we're going to revoke it.
I feel so much safer when you lock up people like Ms. Ozturk, Mr. Secretary.
We've had enough time on the subject. Thank you very much. And we're going to move to Senator Lee.
Mr. Secretary, it's very good to have you back here. I want to say it's good to see the fauna in its natural habitat, but it's more like its former habitat, because your current one is also where you naturally belong. And I, for one, I know a majority of us feel the same way, have every confidence in your ability to serve us, and are very grateful for your service.
Before we get into this, make sure you subscribe, because moments like this are exactly why Americans are so fed up with Washington politicians and the media narrative surrounding them. What you just watched was one of the clearest examples of the divide in American politics right now. On one side, you had Senator Van Hollen delivering this dramatic moral lecture, trying to frame Marco Rubio as some kind of authoritarian villain. On the other side, you had Rubio firing back with something a lot of Americans are increasingly craving from Republican leaders: direct confrontation without apology. Van Hollen clearly came into this hearing wanting a viral moment. You could hear it in the way he built up the speech. He compared Rubio to the McCarthy era, talked about fear and repression, and even tried to invoke Joseph Welch's famous line against McCarthy: "Have you no sense of decency?" The whole thing was designed to paint Rubio as dangerous and extreme. But here's the problem for Democrats right now. That style of attack is starting to lose its impact because voters have heard it over and over again for nearly a decade. Every Republican is supposedly an authoritarian. Every immigration crackdown is supposedly fascism. Every deportation is treated like the collapse of democracy itself. At some point, people stop reacting to the outrage, and Rubio knew exactly how to counter it. The moment Van Hollen said he regretted voting for Rubio, Rubio instantly turned it around and said, "Your regret for voting for me confirms I'm doing a good job." That line completely changed the energy in the room. Instead of getting defensive, Rubio leaned into the criticism. He basically told Van Hollen, "If people like you are angry, then I'm on the right track." That's what made this exchange explode. Then Rubio went even further and started listing some of the USAID projects that have become symbols of government waste for conservatives. He brought up taxpayer money going toward things like circumcision programs in Mozambique, YouTube channels, and vague, social cohesion projects overseas. Now obviously Democrats will argue there are broader diplomatic or humanitarian goals behind those programs, but politically Rubio understands something important. Most Americans hear those numbers and immediately wonder why their tax dollars are funding projects halfway around the world while inflation, border security, and crime remain major issues at home. That's why those examples land politically, whether the foreign policy establishment likes it or not. Then came the immigration clash, and honestly that's where Rubio completely took control of the hearing. Van Hollen and Democrats keep framing deportations and visa revocations as attacks on civil liberties. Rubio framed them completely differently. He said visas are a privilege, not a right. That line matters because it cuts straight through the emotional framing Democrats usually rely on. Rubio's argument was simple. If foreign nationals come to the United States and participate in violent campus unrest, riots, intimidation campaigns, or criminal activity, why should the government continue allowing them to stay here under student visas? That position is not controversial to a huge percentage of Americans. In fact, it's probably becoming more popular, and you could see Van Hollen getting increasingly frustrated because Rubio wasn't accepting the premise of the argument. He refused to back down, even while being interrupted repeatedly. One of the biggest moments came when Rubio talked about the separation of powers and foreign policy authority. This is something most cable news discussions completely ignore. Rubio basically argued that courts cannot micromanage diplomacy between the executive branch and foreign governments. Whether people agree or disagree legally, Rubio framed it as a constitutional issue instead of just a political one. That matters because Republicans increasingly believe unelected judges are interfering with executive authority whenever it comes to immigration or foreign policy enforcement. Rubio tapped directly into that frustration, and then the hearing fully descended into chaos once Rubio brought up the deported gang member that Van Hollen allegedly met with in El Salvador. The room instantly got tense. Democrats objected. Van Hollen tried to push back, but Rubio kept going. That's another thing that stood out here. Rubio wasn't trying to sound polished or diplomatic in the traditional Washington sense. He sounded combative, aggressive, almost prosecutorial, and honestly, that's probably why conservatives love this exchange so much online. Republican voters are tired of seeing GOP officials act cautious while getting accused of racism, fascism, or authoritarianism every single day. They want people who will hit back immediately and unapologetically. That's exactly what Rubio did here. The student visa section especially is going to resonate with a lot of parents across the country. Rubio painted the situation as American students paying massive tuition bills, while campuses are disrupted by foreign activists engaging in chaos and intimidation. Again, whether people agree with every detail or not, politically it's a very effective argument because it reframes the debate around public order and fairness instead of ideology. Meanwhile, Van Hollen's approach felt very familiar: moral condemnation, historical comparisons, and emotional rhetoric about democracy. The problem is that style increasingly struggles against Republicans who simply refuse to be intimidated by those labels anymore. And that's the larger political story behind this entire exchange. This wasn't just Rubio versus Van Hollen. This was a collision between two completely different visions of America. One side believes aggressive immigration enforcement and visa crackdowns are necessary to restore order and national sovereignty. The other side sees those policies as dangerous overreach threatening civil liberties and democratic values. But politically, Rubio probably walked away from this hearing stronger than when he entered it. Why? Because he projected confidence. He projected certainty. And most importantly, he looked completely unafraid of the attacks coming at him. That's what people remember from moments like this. Not the procedural arguments, not the committee rules. They remember who looks strong under pressure. And Rubio clearly understood the assignment. If you enjoyed this breakdown, hit subscribe, leave a comment with your thoughts on the exchange, and let me know who you want covered next, because this hearing was absolute political warfare from start to finish.